Dr. Kim Jun-ho adjusted his translator device as he walked into the massive council chamber. The golden dome stretched high above him, filled with representatives from 1,000 different worlds. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few looked almost human except for their blue skin or extra eyes. After 15 years of working with aliens, Kim still felt amazed by the diversity of life in the galaxy. But today, amazement was not what he felt. Today, he felt fear. The emergency alarm had woken everyone on Nexus Prime 3 hours ago. The Devourers were coming. Kim had studied these creatures for years, reading every report from the Outer Rim. They were not just another hostile species. They were something far worse. The Devourers consumed everything in their path, turning entire star systems into empty space. Order! Order in the chamber! High Counselor Thexa's voice boomed through the dome. The tall, gray alien stood at the center podium, his forearms gesturing for silence. We face the gravest threat in galactic history. The Devourer fleet has broken through our outer defenses. Panicked voices filled the air. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. Kim heard the clicking sounds of the insect-like Zelthari, mixed with the musical tones of the aquatic Meldan. Fear needed no translation. Ambassador Veltar of the Zelani hegemony stood up. His people were known as the best military strategists in the galaxy. How is this possible? Our defense grid was perfect. The mathematical models showed it could not fail. The models were wrong, Kim said, standing from his small seat in the back. As Earth's junior representative, he usually stayed quiet during these meetings. Today was different. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him. Kim felt his heart beating fast, but he forced himself to speak clearly. I have been studying the Devourers for 5 years. They do not fight like us. They adapt. They learn. They change their tactics faster than our computers can calculate new defenses. High Counselor Thexa's expression showed annoyance. Dr. Kim, your species has been part of this council for only 15 years. Perhaps you should listen more and speak less. Kim felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept his voice calm. With respect, Counselor, my species has been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to face an enemy that adapts. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Veltar shook his head. Human warfare is primitive. You use emotion instead of logic. Your soldiers act unpredictably. This is chaos, not strategy. Chaos might be exactly what we need, Kim replied. He activated his data pad and projected holographic images into the air. Look at these battle reports from the Rim worlds. Every time our forces used standard tactics, the Devourers learned and countered within hours. But when local militia groups fought without formal training, they lasted longer. Coincidence, said Warlord Kethmore of the Korathian Empire. His people had never lost a battle in 500 years. Untrained fighters simply take longer to be defeated. This proves nothing. Kim projected another image. This is the defense of Kepler 442. The planetary guard followed military doctrine perfectly. They lasted 6 hours. But look at this. He switched to a different image. These human colonists had no formal military training. They used hunting weapons and farming tools. They held out for 3 days. They were lucky, Veltar said dismissively. No, Kim said firmly. They were unpredictable. The Devourers could not calculate their next move because the humans themselves did not know their next move. They adapted, moment by moment. High Counselor Thexa raised one of his 4 hands. Dr. Kim, are you suggesting we abandon military science for random violence? I am suggesting we use human military forces, Kim said. My government has prepared detailed plans for fighting the Devourers. We have studied their weaknesses. We know how to hurt them. The chamber erupted in noise again. Kim heard the word primitive, repeated in several languages. Someone laughed loudly. Another representative made a gesture that Kim's translator marked as extremely insulting. "Silence," Thexa commanded. "Dr. Kim, human military technology is centuries behind our own. Your weapons are crude. Your ships are slow. Your tactics are based on emotion, rather than logic." Kim felt frustration building in his chest. "Counselor, we may not have your technology, but we have something else. We have the ability to think in ways the Devourers cannot predict. We can be illogical when logic fails." "This is madness." Warlord Kethmore stood up. His massive frame cast a shadow over nearby seats. "The Korathian fleet will handle this threat as we have handled all others. With superior firepower and perfect strategy. The Devourers have already destroyed fleets with superior firepower," Kim said desperately. "They learn from every engagement. They become stronger." Ambassador Veltar waved a dismissive hand. "Dr. Kim, your concern is noted. However, this council will not entrust galactic security to a species that still uses projectile weapons." "Those projectile weapons," Kim began. "Enough!" Thex's voice cut through the air like a blade. "We will vote. All in favor of requesting human military assistance?" We. Kim held his breath as votes were counted electronically. The massive display showed the results. 847 votes against. Only 3 inches favor. Earth's vote, and 2 others from species Kim had never heard of. "Motion rejected," Thexa announced. "The Korathian warlords will lead our defense. Their proven methods will succeed where others have failed." Kim stood up slowly. His hands shook slightly as he gathered his notes. "Counselors, I beg you to reconsider. The Devourers are not just another enemy. They are evolution itself, turned into a weapon. Only chaos can defeat perfect adaptation. Dr. Kim." Thex's voice was cold. "You are hereby censured for inappropriate emotional displays and lack of proper diplomatic decorum. Please remember your place in future sessions." As Kim walked out of the chamber, he heard the council discussing fleet movements and defensive positions. They spoke in the same calm, logical voices they always used. They calculated probabilities and analyzed data, but Kim knew mathematics would not save them. The Devourers understood mathematics too. They would learn, adapt, and overcome every logical strategy the galaxy could devise. Only humanity's beautiful, terrible chaos might stand a chance. And the galaxy had just rejected their only hope. 3 days after the council meeting, Kim sat in his small apartment on Nexus Prime, watching the galaxy burn. The news feeds showed the same terrible story over and over. The Korathian warlords had engaged the Devourer fleet near the Altair system with confidence and pride. Their ships moved in perfect formation. Their weapons fired in calculated patterns. Their tactics followed the military doctrines that had made them unbeatable for 5 centuries. It lasted 8 hours. Kim watched the final transmission from Warlord Kethmore's flagship. The massive alien's face filled the screen, his expression showing shock and disbelief. "They learned our patterns," he said simply. "Everything we tried," they countered. "It is impossible." Then the transmission ended. 60% of the Korathian fleet was gone. Kim's communication device buzzed. The message was short. "Kim, we need to talk. Priority Alpha. Chen." General Sarah Chen was Earth's Supreme Commander of Defense Forces. If she was using Priority Alpha codes, something big was happening on Earth. Kim activated the secure channel. General Chen's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Behind her, Kim could see the busy command center of Luna Base. "Dr. Kim, I have been watching the news," Chen said without greeting. "The Korathians failed. Exactly as you predicted." "I hoped I was wrong," Kim replied honestly. "No, you did not," Chen said with a slight smile. You have been preparing for this moment for years. Your reports on devourer tactics have been very helpful. Kim felt surprised. You have been reading my reports? The council ignored them. The council is not Earth, Chen said firmly. We have been studying every piece of information you sent us. We have been making plans. What kind of plans? Chen's expression became serious. The kind the council will not like. We have been preparing human military forces for deployment against the devourers. Volunteers only. But we have more volunteers than we can use. Kim felt his heart race. General. The council voted against human involvement. If Earth acts without permission, we might save some lives, Chen interrupted. How many civilians died at Altair? 50 billion? 100 billion? The number was still being calculated. Entire worlds had gone silent. The devourers did not just kill their enemies. They consumed everything. People, animals, plants, even the atmosphere. They left nothing behind but empty rock. I have been watching the tactical data from the Korathian engagement, Chen continued. The devourers adapt to logical patterns within hours, but they struggled with the few instances where Korathian commanders made emotional decisions. Kim nodded. When Warlord Kethmore broke formation to save a medical ship, the devourers seemed confused for 17 minutes. Exactly, Chen said. We believe human unpredictability could be a significant advantage, but we need real-time intelligence from someone who understands both human and alien military thinking. Kim understood what she was asking. You want me to coordinate between Earth forces and galactic intelligence networks. I want you to save the galaxy, Chen said simply, but unofficially. The Council cannot know Earth is involved until we prove our methods work. Before Kim could respond, his apartment's emergency alert system activated. The urgent tone meant breaking news of the highest importance. Kim switched to the main galactic news feed. The anchor, a Zelani with pale blue skin, spoke in a voice that tried to hide panic. We have received confirmation that the Kepler system has fallen to the Devourer advance. The evacuation fleet was destroyed during orbital approach. Estimated casualties exceed 30 billion souls. The screen showed images from the last surveillance drone. 3 beautiful worlds, each home to billions of beings, were now gray and lifeless. The devourers had stripped them of everything. Kim felt sick. He had visited Kepler 442 2 years ago for a xenobiology conference. He remembered the crystal cities of the native Kepleri and the floating gardens they had built in their atmosphere. All gone now. General, Kim said quietly. How soon can your forces be ready? They are already moving, Chen replied. We have been positioning assets since the council vote. But Kim, I need you to understand something. This will be dangerous for you personally. If the council discovers you are helping us, they will remove me from my position and exile Earth from the galactic community, Kim finished. I know the risks. And you are willing to accept them? Kim thought about the empty worlds he had just seen. He thought about the billions of beings who had died because the council was too proud to accept help from a young species. He thought about the human colonists who had held out for 3 days with hunting rifles and farming tools. Yes, he said. I am willing. Chen nodded. Good. I am sending you encrypted communication protocols and intelligence requirements. From now on, you are our eyes and ears in the galactic government. After Chen ended the call, Kim sat quietly in his apartment. Outside his window, he could see other species going about their daily lives on Nexus Prime. Most of them probably did not even know how close the devourers were getting to the core worlds. His communication device buzzed again. This time, the message came from High Counselor Thexa's office. Kim was summoned to an emergency meeting in 1 hour. When Kim arrived at the High Counselor's private office, he found several other representatives already there. Ambassador Veltar sat in a corner, his usual confidence replaced by obvious worry. 2 other military advisors from major powers stood near the large window. "Dr. Kim," Thexa said as he entered. "Thank you for coming quickly." "Of course, Counselor. How can I help?" Thexa's forearms moved nervously. "The situation has become more serious than our initial calculations suggested. The Devourer advance is faster than predicted. Our remaining fleets are falling back to defensive positions." "I see," Kim said carefully. "Dr. Kim, your species has experience with unconventional warfare," Veltar said reluctantly. "Perhaps we were too hasty in our earlier decision." Kim felt hope rise in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. "Are you reconsidering human military involvement?" "We are considering all options," Thexa said evasively. "However, any human forces would need to operate under galactic military command. They would follow established protocols and tactical doctrines." Kim's hope died. "Counselor, with respect, established protocols are exactly what the Devourers are designed to defeat. Human effectiveness comes from our ability to act outside normal patterns." "Chaos is not strategy," Veltar insisted. "Sometimes it is," Kim replied quietly. The meeting continued for another hour, but Kim knew nothing would change. The galactic leaders were scared, but they were not scared enough to give up control. They wanted human help, but only if humans fought like everyone else. That night, Kim sent his first intelligence report to General Chen. The galactic fleets were positioning for a massive defensive stand at the Vega system. It would be their last chance to stop the Devourers before they reached the core worlds. It would also be the perfect place for human forces to prove their worth. If they were willing to disobey the Council and risk everything for beings who had rejected them. Colonel Park Minjun studied the tactical display in his command ship's bridge as the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Kepler 442 system stretched out before them, and it looked like hell. What had once been a thriving star system with 3 inhabited worlds was now a graveyard. The planets were gray and dead, stripped of all life. Massive Devourer bioships moved through the system like hungry sharks, searching for any remaining resources to consume. "Sir, we have 200,000 civilian refugees trapped on the mining stations," reported Commander Lisa Okafor from her position at the tactical console. "The evacuation ships cannot get through the Devourer patrol patterns." Park nodded grimly. Earth had officially condemned the human fleet's presence here. Officially, they were volunteers acting without government authorization. Unofficially, they carried the hopes of their entire species. "How long until the Galactic Relief Fleet arrives?" Park asked. 6 hours, sir," Okafor replied. "But intelligence suggests the Devourer assault on the stations will begin in 2 hours." Park made his decision. "All ships, prepare for Operation Wildfire. We go in fast and loud." On the bridge, his crew moved with practiced efficiency. Park's people were volunteers, but they were also Earth's best. Marines, pilots, engineers, and tacticians who had trained their entire lives for warfare. Unlike their galactic counterparts, they had not trained for perfect battles. They had trained for chaos. "Sir, incoming transmission from Dr. Kim on Nexus Prime," the communications officer announced. Kim's face appeared on the main screen. He looked nervous but determined. "Colonel Park, I am transmitting real-time intelligence on Devourer movement patterns. But I must warn you, if this operation fails, those people die," Park interrupted. "We are not here for politics, Doctor. We are here to save lives." Kim nodded. "The Council is monitoring this system. They will know humans are involved." "Good," Park said. "Let them watch." The human fleet moved into the system like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the orderly formations favored by galactic military doctrine, the human ships spread out in seemingly random patterns. Some moved fast, others moved slow. A few even appeared to be flying in the wrong direction. The Devourer response was immediate. Bioships turned toward the human fleet, their organic sensors trying to analyze the new threat. Park watched the tactical display as the enemy attempted to predict human movement patterns. They failed. Commander Okafor's ship suddenly accelerated toward a group of Devourer scouts, firing projectile weapons instead of energy beams. The metal bullets confused the bioship's adaptive armor, which had learned to deflect laser and plasma attacks. Contact. Okafor's voice crackled over the communication system. Enemy ships are trying to adapt to projectile impacts, but they keep changing their armor density. They cannot find the right balance. Park smiled. Human weapons were considered primitive by galactic standards, but they had one advantage. They were unpredictable. A bullet might penetrate armor, or it might bounce off, or it might fragment into shrapnel. The Devourers could not calculate all the variables. All ships, commence random tactical doctrine, Park ordered. The battle that followed looked like madness to any observer trained in galactic military science. Human ships broke formation without warning. Captains made decisions based on instinct rather than computer analysis. Pilots flew attack patterns that made no logical sense. It worked. The Devourers had evolved to counter logical military thinking. They analyzed enemy patterns, learned from engagement data, and adapted their tactics accordingly. But humans were not being logical. They were being human. Captain Lee Sujin's destroyer suddenly dove toward a Devourer cruiser, firing everything it had while playing classical music over open communication channels. The bioship tried to understand why the humans were broadcasting Bach during combat. The distraction lasted long enough for Lee's ship to slip past its defenses and target its vital systems. Another human ship, commanded by Captain Kim Young-soo, began retreat procedures in the middle of a successful attack run. The Devourers adjusted their tactics to pursue a fleeing enemy, only to discover that Kim had been laying mines behind him. The pursuing bioships flew directly into the trap, but the real breakthrough came when Lieutenant Commander Park Ji-won's fighter squadron encountered a group of Devourer interceptors protecting a refugee station. Instead of engaging in standard combat maneuvers, Park Ji-won ordered his pilots to ram the enemy ships, not because it was tactically sound, not because it had a high probability of success, but because 20,000 civilian refugees were about to die, and 20 human pilots decided their lives were worth the trade. The Devourer hive mind could not process this decision. It made no logical sense. The human pilots gained no strategic advantage from their sacrifice. They saved beings they had never met, from species they barely knew. The bioships hesitated for crucial seconds, trying to understand the motivation behind such an action. Those seconds were enough. The refugee station's shields held. Evacuation ships broke through the Devourer lines. 200,000 civilians escaped to safety, while the enemy was still trying to calculate why humans would die for strangers. By the time the Galactic Relief Fleet arrived, the human ships were already leaving the system. They had lost 30% of their force, but they had accomplished something no other military in galactic history had managed. They had confused the Devourers. Park received a priority transmission as his fleet regrouped for the jump to hyperspace. Ambassador Veltar's face appeared on his screen, and for the first time since Park had met the alien, Veltar looked uncertain. Colonel Park, the Galactic Council demands an explanation for your unauthorized presence in this system. Ambassador, Park replied calmly, we saved 200,000 lives. What explanation do you need? You violated Council orders. You acted without authorization. Your tactics were completely unpredictable. Park allowed himself a small smile. Yes, sir. That was the point. After the transmission ended, Park looked at the tactical data from the engagement. The Devourer ships had spent 18% more time analyzing human actions compared to their previous battles. They had made 7 major tactical errors due to incorrect predictions about human behavior. For the first time since the war began, the enemy had been forced to slow down and think. In his apartment on Nexus Prime, Dr. Kim watched the news reports with growing hope. The galactic media was calling the human intervention reckless and unauthorized. Military analysts criticized the chaotic nature of human tactics. But Kim noticed something else in the reports. Other species were asking questions. Why had human pilots sacrificed themselves for aliens? How had primitive weapons confused advanced bioships? End quote. What made human soldiers so unpredictable? For the first time since he had joined the galactic community, humans were not being dismissed as primitive. They were being studied. And in a galaxy facing an enemy that learned from everything, being unpredictable was the most valuable trait anyone could possess. The Council might not admit it yet, but Kim knew the truth. Humanity had just changed the course of the war. Now they had to prove it was not just luck. General Sarah Chen stepped off the transport ship at Nexus Prime's military docking bay. Her boots clicking against the metal floor. Behind her, a small group of Earth's most elite officers followed in formation. They wore simple gray uniforms that looked primitive compared to the advanced armor of galactic military forces. But Chen was not here to look impressive. She was here to win a war. Dr. Kim met them at the security checkpoint. His face showed relief, mixed with worry. "General, I am glad you came, personally, but the Council is not happy about human involvement in the Kepler operation. I did not expect them to be," Chen replied as they walked toward the main administrative complex. "But 17 other species have requested human military advisors since Kepler. That tells me something important." "What does it tell you?" Chen smiled grimly. "It tells me they are more scared of losing than they are angry at us for being right." The meeting room where Chen faced the Galactic Council was the same chamber where Kim had been dismissed weeks earlier. But the atmosphere was different now. Representatives whispered nervously among themselves. Several military advisors studied datapads showing human tactical reports. High Counselor Thexa stood at the central podium, his forearms crossed in what Kim recognized as a defensive posture. "General Chen, Earth's unauthorized military action at Kepler 442 violated galactic law and council authority." "Yes, it did," Chen agreed simply. "We also saved 200,000 lives." Ambassador Veltar leaned forward in his seat. "Your tactics were reckless. Your soldiers died unnecessarily. Your methods cannot be replicated by our forces." "You are right on all counts," Chen said. "Human military doctrine is based on accepting risk, embracing uncertainty, and making emotional decisions under pressure. These are things galactic military science has spent centuries trying to eliminate. Then why should we consider adopting such methods?" asked Warlord Keth Moore. The massive Korathian looked smaller than before, humbled by his fleet's devastating defeat. Chen activated a holographic projector she had brought with her. The image showed a three-dimensional map of recent battle sites. "Because they work. Look at this data. Every engagement where local forces used standard galactic tactics resulted in complete defeat within hours. But every engagement where commanders made emotional or irrational decisions lasted significantly longer." The display changed to show specific examples. Here, a Zelani captain broke formation to rescue a damaged medical ship. The Devourers took 43 minutes to adapt to the new tactical situation. Here, a Korathian unit ignored retreat orders to hold a school evacuation route. The bioships showed confusion patterns for over an hour. "Isolated incidents," Veltar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No," Chen replied firmly. "Patterns. The Devourers are evolution made manifest. They adapt to logical threats through analysis and learning. But emotion and sacrifice are not logical. They are human." High Counselor Thexa raised one hand. "General, even if your assessment is correct, human forces cannot protect the entire galaxy. You lack the numbers and technology. We do not need to protect the entire galaxy," Chen said. "We need to teach the galaxy to protect itself." She changed the holographic display to show human training programs. "My officers are prepared to work with your forces. not to command them, but to introduce chaos into their tactical thinking, to teach them when to break rules instead of following them. Commander Lisa Okafor, who had accompanied Chen from Earth, stepped forward. Counselors, we have been studying devourer adaptation patterns for months. They learn fastest from predictable enemies. They struggle most with opponents who change their fundamental approach mid-battle. This goes against everything we know about military science, protested a representative from the Althari Federation. Yes, Okafor agreed. That is exactly why it works. The debate continued for hours. Kim watched from his seat as centuries of galactic military tradition clashed with human concepts of warfare. The aliens understood technology and strategy. Humans understood people and chaos. Finally, High Counselor Thexa called for a recess. General, they are afraid, he said quietly. Not just of the devourers. They are afraid of admitting humans might know something they do not. Chen nodded. I understand their pride, but pride will not save them from extinction. When the session resumed, Ambassador Veltar had prepared a proposal. The Council is willing to authorize limited human involvement in military operations. However, human forces must operate under galactic command structure and follow established protocols. Chen shook her head. Ambassador, that defeats the entire purpose. Human effectiveness comes from our unpredictability. If we follow your protocols, we become as vulnerable as everyone else. Then, what do you suggest? Thexa asked. Independent Operation Authority, Chen said. Human forces coordinate with galactic fleets, but maintain tactical autonomy. We fight the way we know how to fight. Absolutely not. Warlord Kethmore stood up. Military operations require unified command. Chaos is not leadership. Warlord, Chen said respectfully, your unified command has lost 60% of your fleet. Perhaps it is time to try a different approach. The chamber fell silent. Kim could see the pain in Kethmore's expression. The Carathian military had never experienced defeat before facing the Devourers. General Chen, Thexa said carefully, what guarantees do we have that human forces will coordinate effectively with our own? None, Chen admitted. War provides no guarantees, but I can promise you this. Human soldiers will fight for beings they have never met, for worlds they have never seen, because it is right. Not because it is logical or profitable, but because it is right. She gestured to Commander Okafor. Commander, tell them about the Kepler engagement. Okafor stepped forward. Counselors, during the evacuation operation, my tactical computer calculated a 12% chance of mission success. Every logical analysis suggested retreat, but we did not retreat because logic told us to ignore the civilians who would die. We advanced because our humanity told us their lives mattered. Number 4. Mine is C. 1. The Devourers could not understand this decision, Chen continued. They had never encountered an enemy that prioritized stranger welfare over tactical advantage. It broke their analytical framework for 47 minutes. In military terms, that confusion window allowed complete mission success. Warlord Kethmore sat down slowly. You are suggesting that our greatest weakness, caring about others, could be our greatest strength. I am suggesting that caring about others is not a weakness, Chen replied. It is the most powerful force in the universe. The Devourers consume everything, but they understand nothing about why anyone would willingly sacrifice for something beyond themselves. Kim watched the faces around the chamber. He could see the internal struggle in each representative. They had spent centuries building military doctrine around logic and efficiency. Now they were being asked to embrace chaos and emotion. Ambassador Veltar spoke slowly. If we accept this proposal and human methods fail, we will have lost everything. If you reject this proposal, Chen said quietly, you will lose everything anyway. The Devourers are 12 light-years from the core worlds. Your remaining fleets cannot stop them using conventional tactics. We know this because we have seen the battle reports. She paused, looking at each council member. Counselors, I am not here to take command of your forces. I am here to offer partnership. My species brings chaos, unpredictability, and emotional decision-making to the battlefield. Your species bring advanced technology, strategic coordination, and tactical discipline. Together, we might create something the Devourers have never encountered, an enemy they cannot fully understand or predict. High Counselor Thexa looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives. Kim could see the weight of decision in the alien's posture. We will vote, Thexa announced. All in favor of granting humans independent tactical authority in joint operations? This time, the vote was much closer. 421 inches favor, 429 against. Motion fails, Thexa said, but his voice lacked satisfaction. General Chen nodded calmly. I understand, Counselor. When you change your mind, you know how to contact us. As the humans prepared to leave, Warlord Kethmore approached Chen privately. General, if I were to request human advisors for my remaining fleet units, hypothetically speaking, how would you respond? Chen smiled. Hypothetically, I would ask when you wanted them to arrive. Kim realized that regardless of the official vote, everything had changed. The galaxy was finally ready to learn from humanity. They might be ready just in time. The final battle began 3 months later in the Vega system, where the last great Devourer hive fleet had gathered for its assault on the galactic core worlds. Colonel Park Minjun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the largest military force in galactic history prepare for what might be civilization's final stand. But this fleet looked different from anything the galaxy had ever assembled. Human ships flew alongside Korathian cruisers. Zelani fighters followed attack patterns designed by human tacticians. Even the proud Althari had accepted human military advisors. Dr. Kim's voice came over the communication channel from his position aboard the Galactic Command ship. Colonel Park, intelligence confirms the Devourer Queenship is at the center of their formation. If we can disrupt the hive mind's primary node, their coordination will collapse. Understood, Doctor, Park replied. How heavily is it defended? Every bioship in their fleet is positioned to protect it. Traditional assault would be impossible. Park smiled. Good thing. We are not planning a traditional assault. The battle plan was something that would have horrified military strategists just months earlier. Instead of coordinated formations, the combined fleet would attack in waves of organized chaos. Each species would fight according to their strengths, but they would all embrace the human principle of tactical unpredictability. General Chen's voice came over the fleet-wide communication system from her command position on Luna Base, light years away. All forces, remember what we have learned. The Devourers expect logic. Give them chaos. They expect calculation. Give them instinct. They expect self-preservation. Give them sacrifice. The first wave launched with Korathian warlord Kethmore leading his reformed fleet. But instead of the precise formations his people were famous for, the Korathian ships moved in patterns inspired by human storm tactics. They advanced like a natural disaster rather than a military force. The Devourer response showed immediate confusion. Bioships tried to analyze the Korathian approach, but found mathematical models that no longer applied. The massive aliens were fighting like humans, embracing controlled chaos over perfect order. Commander Okafor's human squadron hit the enemy flank using a combination of Earth tactics and Zelani technology. Her ships moved unpredictably while firing weapons that mixed human projectiles with alien energy beams. The Devourers had learned to counter each weapon type individually, but had never faced hybrid attacks that combined multiple damage systems randomly. Target confusion is increasing, Kim reported from the command ship. Devourer adaptation cycles are taking 40% longer than normal. Park watched the tactical display as the battle spread across the entire system. Alien commanders who had spent centuries following rigid doctrine were learning to trust their instincts. They made emotional decisions, broke their own rules, and discovered the terrible freedom of fighting without certainty. The breakthrough came when Captain Lee Soo-jin's mixed squadron encountered the Devourer elite guard protecting the Queen ship's approach vector. The bioships were massive, heavily armed, and had adapted to counter every known attack method. "Colonel, the elite guard is blocking our approach to the primary target," Lee reported, requesting instructions. Park looked at the tactical situation. Standard military doctrine called for a concentrated assault with maximum firepower. Human doctrine called for something else entirely. "Captain Lee, what does your gut tell you to do?" There was a pause over the communication channel. "Sir, my gut tells me to do something completely insane." "Then do it." What followed became known in galactic history as the Vega Gambit. Captain Lee's squadron did not attack the elite guard. Instead, they flew directly past them, broadcasting surrender signals while simultaneously preparing for ramming maneuvers. The Devourer bioships had never encountered an enemy that surrendered while attacking. Their hive mind consciousness tried to process the contradiction. Were the human ships giving up or preparing for battle? The logical impossibility created a processing loop that lasted for precious seconds. Those seconds allowed the rest of the human fleet to punch through the confused defenses. Park's flagship, accompanied by volunteers from a dozen species, made the final approach to the Devourer Queen ship. The massive biostructure was larger than some space stations, its organic hull pulsing with the neural activity that coordinated the entire enemy fleet. "All ships, prepare for final assault," Park announced. "Remember, we are not just fighting for victory. We are fighting for the right of chaos to exist in an ordered universe." The attack on the Queen ship was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Ships from different species worked together without central coordination, each following their own tactical instincts while supporting their allies. Korathian heavy cruisers provided covering fire, while Zilani fighters made impossible maneuvers through the bioship's defenses. Human Marines, led by Major Kim Young-soo, boarded the Queen ship using a combination of Earth assault techniques and alien technology. They fought through corridors that shifted and adapted around them, facing an enemy that learned from every step they took. But the humans learned too, and more importantly, they refused to be logical about it. When Major Kim's team reached the Queen ship's neural center, they found themselves facing a choice no military manual had ever described. They could destroy the hive mind's central processor, killing billions of Devourer bioships instantly. Or they could try to communicate with it, attempting to introduce concepts the hive mind had never encountered. Kim made his decision based on pure human instinct. Instead of destroying the neural center, he connected his portable computer to the bioship's consciousness and transmitted something the Devourers had never experienced: music, art, poetry, and philosophy. The chaotic beauty of human creativity flooded into a mind that knew only consumption and adaptation. The effect was immediate and devastating. The hive mind, faced with concepts it could not categorize or consume, began to fragment. Individual bioships started making independent decisions for the first time in their species' history. Some continued fighting, others retreated, and a few simply stopped moving entirely as they struggled to understand what they had experienced. The coordinated Devourer fleet dissolved into thousands of confused individual ships. Without the hive mind's perfect coordination, they became vulnerable to traditional military tactics. The battle ended not with glorious victory, but with exhausted relief. The Devourer threat was not destroyed, but it was broken. Scattered ships retreated to the far reaches of space, no longer capable of the coordinated assault that had terrified the galaxy. 6 months later, Dr. Kim stood in the same council chamber where he had been dismissed and censured. But now he wore the insignia of the first human High Counselor in galactic history. The Devourer War has taught us many lessons, he addressed the assembled representatives. We learned that strength comes not from perfection, but from the courage to be imperfect. We learned that chaos and order can work together. Most importantly, we learned that caring for others, even strangers, is not weakness but the greatest power in the universe. Ambassador Veltar, who now served as Kim's deputy in interspecies military coordination, nodded respectfully. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. The galaxy owes humanity nothing, Kim replied. We did not fight for debt or glory. We fought because it was right. Warlord Kethmore, whose reformed fleet now included human tactical advisors, stood up. Dr. Kim, what will humanity do with its new position in galactic leadership? Kim smiled, thinking of all the young humans who were now training alongside alien military forces, sharing the beautiful chaos of human thinking with species across the galaxy. We will do what we have always done, he said. We will be unpredictable, emotional, and illogical. We will make mistakes, learn from them, and make new mistakes. We will care about beings we barely know and fight for principles that cannot be calculated. And most importantly, we will make sure the galaxy never becomes so ordered, so logical, so predictable that it forgets how to adapt when the impossible becomes necessary. In the years that followed, military academies across the galaxy added courses on chaos theory and emotional decision-making. Young officers from hundreds of species learned to trust their instincts as much as their computers. The rigid military doctrines that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia gave way to flexible thinking that embraced uncertainty. The Devourers never returned in force, but their scattered fleets occasionally tested galactic defenses. Each time, they found defenders who had learned the most human lesson of all: that sometimes the best way to win is to be willing to lose everything for something greater than yourself. Dr. Kim never returned to Earth, but he never forgot his home. In his office on Nexus Prime, he kept a simple photograph of human children playing in the snow, their laughter captured in a moment of pure, chaotic joy. It reminded him daily that in a universe of cold logic and perfect order, the messy beauty of human emotion was the most powerful force of all.